This podcast is on a mission to end the orphan crisis. You're listening to Family is the Answer, powered by Podcast Network Asia. We share resources and stories to equip families who plan to adopt and foster, empower advocates who fight for vulnerable mothers and children, and invite communities to impact generations. I'm Chrina Henson, the Executive Director for Generations Home, a nonprofit organization and licensed child placement agency based in the Philippines. Learn more about our work through our website, generationshome.org. Now, let's jump in to this week's topic. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Family is the Answer podcast. My name is Chrina, and I have the wonderful privilege of working with our team here in the Philippines at Generations Home. And, our team has grown so much in the last few years, and it's been wonderful because we've grown in size, but it's also been hard because that means that we don't get to see each other all the time because there are so many of us. And that's why I wanted to jump at the opportunity to get some time for you to hear the story of one of our colleagues that's now currently based in Cagayan de Oro, which is where relative to Metro Manila?
Northern Mindanao.
Northern Mindanao. Okay, so north. And Esther Suson has been with our team. She's really a pioneering member of our team. It's been 5 years now? Approaching 5 years now. It feels like forever. And she's been just so critical, so instrumental in building the advocacy work that you all get to enjoy and know about today. It's really because of her being a critical member of that team that built and pioneered that work. And so I just wanted to say thank you for all that you do, Esther. I know that we don't get the chance to talk all the time, but you just have such an incredible story, and I wanted to introduce you first as a member of our team. But really more than that, I wanted to introduce you as an adoptive mother, a second mother, and someone that I deeply admire and respect for the path that you've chosen and the way that you've chosen to live your life with so much intention. Nothing is accidental for you. Everything is planned out and strategic because of a purpose that you live for. And I'm so excited because today we're going to hear a little bit about Esther's story. She's so graciously been forced into doing this podcast, literally sat her down from the previous episode and was like, hold it, we're doing another episode. Because, in the previous episode where you were talking very briefly about your story, I just really, my heart was that people would hear more. And this topic of adoption is so uncommon in our culture today. Well, it's becoming less uncommon, which we rejoice over, but Yay. Single mothers and single parents adopting even more so. And your story is so beautifully written and is being lived out in the hard and the happy, right, of it all. But I just wanted to have people hear your journey and the realness of it all. So I hope that's okay with you.
Okay.
I'm going to try not to make you too emotional. I know this is a topic that's super close to your heart, and you have such a tender heart for your son. But maybe you could just, I don't even know where to begin, right? But maybe we could just start from the beginning. So in the previous episode where you were with the advocacy team, if you haven't heard that, feel free to go back to it. But you were talking a little bit about how this all started for you, right? With seeing a Facebook post, discovering along with the rest of the world, this post that just went viral that one of our volunteers or interns had produced for us in the time of their internship. And it went viral. 2 million people saw this post, and suddenly we had a bunch of inquiries. But you were proofreading that post.
I was proofreading before. We didn't know it would reach 2 million.
No, it was just like any other post. And you never really know, right? Like, especially at that point where we were learning as we go. We had no idea. But you mentioned you saw it and it struck a chord in you.
One image said, how can I adopt if I'm a single parent?
Right.
And then it had a list of requirements. I think that helped because then it becomes easy to do. Like there are steps to it. It's not just like, yes, you can. And then what next, right? It was just like, yes, you can. And you need these.
Right.
Or this is the process. And it was a freeze frame in my mind until now. because
You can see the post.
I can see the post in my mind right
Okay.
now because it was like I had asked that question and I had it answered, and that was, I honestly don't remember what my life plan was before that. I just remember thinking, well, then I'm going to adopt.
Right.
And everything after that reshaped around that decision.
Well, I'm guessing that, adoption is one of those things where it's typically, it starts as a crazy idea, right? It's this like crazy idea. And then you wonder how to tell people, what are they going to say? I mean, this is the truth that nobody wants to talk about. But as an adoptive parent, we think about that, right? When we're going through it, we're thinking, what are people going to say? How are they going to react? What's the response of my family and friends going to be? And how am I going to defend my decision, right? What was that like for you? Because as a single person, I can imagine the wrestling of that is even more intense than it was for somebody who has somebody to wrestle that and converse with about it, right?
I think it's, for me, what I did was I started asking people, did you know you can adopt as a single person?
Ooh, that's a great tip.
And then if they say no, I was like, because you can. And then I would explain. But what helped was I was working in Generations Home. So they just assumed it was part of my job.
Right.
And I used that to my advantage to kind of get people's thoughts about it. What do they think? And usually what they'd say is, don't you want to get married? So they assumed when I said I'll adopt,
that you didn't want to get married.
I don't want to get married. I do want to get married.
Interesting.
But since it's taking a while, I was like, then I'll just go ahead and start a family.
Right.
And it's not, like, for me, that wasn't a leap of logic.
Right.
Because I want a family.
It's not. If you think about our society and culture, right? And it is choosing a hard path. There are a lot of people who are parenting as single parents, and it's typically not by choice, right? And so for you to say, I am choosing this path of parenting on my own for however long that might be, right? And I think just to clear the air, you do hope to get married someday, right? And I mean, that is a hope of a lot of single mothers that we've seen say yes to adoption or even foster care. It's not what people think, that they don't want to get married, but it is, and correct me if I'm wrong, this desire to steward time and to not put life on hold.
Yes.
While waiting for the right person to come into your life, because you don't have control over that.
Yes. And I mean, I might as well bring it up because I think it's a good conversation to have. Mm-hmm. I do believe in waiting until marriage for physical intimacy.
Right.
And that means that it narrowed down my options of starting a family.
Right.
And adoption was one of them. And there was, okay, it fits in with my values, my spiritual values, my beliefs, and the story of God and Jesus and us. Yeah. God having adopted us. So I just felt like it was so in line with who I am as a person as well, and my beliefs, that it was, let's do it. It was easy to do.
There was very little that was holding you back at that point.
Personally,
once it aligns with your values, right? Then the major limiting factors are gone.
Yes.
Well, what was it like when you transition from like kind of getting a sensing and like, seeing how people respond to the whole, did you know you could, to actually having to communicate, let's say, and you can share as little or as much as you'd like with your family and friends, that I am doing this. I am moving very intentionally to a place where I can afford to raise a child and get things started and provide enough for his education and all the different things that come with having a son. When it got to that point of you being certain and beginning to make steps to do that, what were those conversations like, and what were some of the things that you wrestled with and had to come to terms with?
I think the question I was not prepared for, that I knew everyone was going to ask, was, are you sure? Because you can't say yes until you know, and you can't know because it hadn't happened yet.
Right.
And so I thought it was a redundant question, or like a question that doesn't make sense, actually.
Yeah. Now that you say it, I'm like,
But I would say, well, I'm going to do it. So in terms of surety, like emotional, that wasn't an issue for me. It was just going to happen. And I think I'm a very straightforward person, which
Yeah.
So I would really just say, if they say, oh, why are you moving back to the province where I grew up in? And I'd say, oh, I'm planning to adopt. And it's easier here. The rent is cheaper. I would just give really practical answers, and they'll be like, you're planning to what? That's like, the rent is cheaper, and then I think because our society is still they still hold back their words most of the time. They would just stop talking. I was like, oh, ask me questions, but usually they don't. But I think what was really interesting for me was at the time that I moved back, I first stayed with my grandmother and my tita, who were both at one time or another single mothers. And I guess I just had a picture of both the struggle and the beauty of it, and how much they give and love and sacrifice and still have space to love me. And I was praying about it. I said, Lord, because when they tell me about their worries and fears, they're coming from a place of experience. So I really didn't want to disregard that. Like, am I, there's a word for it. Am I like insulting them by choosing it when, it wasn't necessarily chosen for them?
yes.
And I really felt God say, you're their redemption, that you chose it. Because I know they love being mothers, and I know they love the children they mothered. And I am not insulting them by choosing it. I am honoring their love as mothers for their children. And it was very important to me because I really love them, and I really didn't want them to feel like I was making light of their experiences by
Yes.
choosing it. But that conversation, I think those were my favorite, because they would have personal experiences. Like, it can be like this. Are you sure? That I was willing to answer.
Yes.
Like, okay, thank you for sharing this with me. These are my thoughts. These are my plans, my strategies. I'm sure. And from day one, when I met my son for the first time, we actually met like 5 days before or 6 days before I really brought him home in Gotcha Day. We brought him to my house and then lunch at my grandmother's house. And from the moment they saw him, they treated him like their own. Like, all of the fears and the doubts that I knew they had, they did not show anything to him.
Wow.
They just welcomed him and introduced themselves. This is I'm your grandmother. I'm your tita. This is your, because my cousins are much younger than me. This is your tito. This is your tita who's 5 years old,
Well, I think it's important to mention that the child that you adopted, to layer on the rarity of it, right? Or how uncommon your story is you actually adopted a child who, in the Philippines, we know older children are very rarely adopted. So much so by single mothers, right? All the more so by single mothers. And he was 9 when he came home to you.
Yes.
Which in the adoption space in the Philippines almost never happens, like sadly. And so seeing you do that is incredible. I'm sure not just for your friends and family, but for the adoptive community around the country as well, to see what kind of choices you made. I do want to just circle back a little bit, because I think that, we were talking about people asking, are you sure?
Right.
And I think to be sure is very different from being committed.
Right. Yes.
So I think sometimes we're not sure, right?
Yes.
Because we have questions and we have doubts and we're human and we wrestle with things, and we wrestle with God about things that we are not sure about. There is not certainty for everything in the adoption, almost anything in the adoptive space, but there is commitment. And I think the way you described it showed me your commitment to adoption, regardless of the uncertainties, regardless of what the future might look like. In the previous episode where you were with the advocacy team, you talked about grieving things before they had even happened. You grieved the things that you would have to lay down and the way that your life would have, how different your life would have to look in order for you to be able to say yes and be committed to adoption. And so I guess for people listening, right, that's a really hard question to ask adoptive families or somebody considering, are you sure? We might not be sure, right? We might not know. We might not have the answers. But to be committed is really what we're looking for, right? Families that would say yes, wholeheartedly committed, diving in both feet, saying whatever happens, I'm committed to this child. And it's just been really beautiful to watch you do that. I want to shift gears a little bit and just talk a little bit about you and your son and what the journey has been like. So it's been about a year and a half.
15 months.
15 months at this point. And we don't need to talk too much about the technical part of it, but really the experience as a single mother. I want to talk about all the joys, but before we do that, and how much you love being a soccer mom, which when you said that in the previous episode, tears started to flow because it's just so pretty the way you said it. So beautiful the way you said it. Talk to me about, can you be real with me? What are some of the challenges of doing this journey of motherhood, of adoptive motherhood on your own, and some of the experiences that you've had because you said yes to an older child? And for everybody listening, I ask this not because we want to scare anybody. We actually want to encourage you because we want to have real conversations about it and know that there's a safe space for us to talk about both the good and the bad and the hard and the happy of our journeys. Yeah. So would you just share with us a little bit about some of your experiences that maybe were more on the challenging side?
I think as a single mom, the first thing I noticed was I can't just leave him with somebody and go do the groceries. You know, it was more of a logistical thing that stressed me out at first, right? Because it's like, I really have to bring him everywhere. He doesn't know anybody but me. He's in a new city because he was, his foster family was from another city. So he's never seen this many cars
right.
and buildings. He grew up in the mountains in Bukidnon, which is a beautiful place to grow up. It's the best possible place for a kid to grow up. And I didn't know what to do, right? And we weren't communicating so well at first. He wasn't super articulate. Like in terms of word groups, it was more like 2 to 3 word groups. Not really specific, sometimes with a bit of a timeline all over the place. There were some sequencing issues.
In the way that he would communicate?
Yes.
So you kind of had to play detective a little bit.
Yes, and sometimes I was losing my temper and it turns out it was just he didn't know before and the difference between before, after, and later. Right. And now.
And at 9 years old, you would have expected that,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
And
so I think, I couldn't just leave him unattended because I didn't know how to make myself understood and I didn't understand him. And that led to meltdowns and his meltdowns and my meltdowns.
I was like, whose meltdowns?
Ours. And the thing is, I couldn't, it's like when he's having a meltdown, I can't ask somebody else to get dinner because I have to get dinner.
Right.
So I can't 100% focus on him and his needs, or I'd have to, and then we'd eat dinner late. It's all me. It's all me. That was my biggest hardship. Like I don't need. There's some days I was just like, I just want a partner. And when I say partner, I really mean partner. I really mean like someone who will spend time with this kid, like date this kid. I want, specifically, I do want to have a male partner, like a father figure, because he's such a strong guy, like my son. He reminds me of me, actually. We're so hard-headed at the same time. But like, I just feel there was this one amazing time. 3 of our friends took us on a vacation, like they took care of everything. And my friend's dad decided, like, took it upon himself to get my son and actually spend most of the time with him. And he bloomed so much. Like, it was 9 days or less. Wow. And I could see him blooming. Mm-hmm. Like, my son, like, his face changed. He looked like more excited about life. He really loves Pops, is, you know, what we call him. And I was like, oh man, I need someone who can really help my son feel safe and secure.
So I want to just ask, right? Because when you say that, like, are you saying that it would have been better for you to wait till you were married? You know, like how do you, you know what I mean? Like, yes. I just want to ask it straight on behalf of people who are listening, right? Because I could hear that and go like, well, that's why you don't adopt when you're single, because you do want a mother and a father in the life of your child, and you chose that. So, you know, what do you say to that?
I think my first question to single parents would be, consider what you get if you wait, or have what if you wait, and consider what you have if you don't. Yes, I wish I was married when I adopted. Like, I'll say that right out. Mm-hmm. And I understood the importance of partnership in marriage after I adopted. Mm-hmm. Not before. Before,
right,
strong and independent. But, sure. You know, after that, I was like, oh my goodness, Lord help me. But you know, the cry of my heart is really like, Lord help me. What on earth is this without a partner? So I don't regret it.
Right.
I just wish I could give my son more than what I can give him. Because as a therapist, because I'm also a child therapist.
I know, which helps.
The struggle is trying not to give your child whiplash. There should be a nurturer and there should be like a protector. Mm-hmm. They go hand in hand, and they're not always, like, you can share the role, you can switch the role, but ideally it's not the same person all the time. Right. That's the safest, like, that's the healthiest. And I couldn't do that.
Yeah. But I have seen you and observed you because, you know, like I said, when we started this episode, I admire you so much because of your courage and your commitment to your son and watching you mother and do it with so much intention. I think you've deliberately also surrounded yourself with community. You're really intentional about helping your son build relationships with other father figures or other men that you trust and you know can pour into him. And so in a sense, I guess it's not so much, like you said, you don't regret it, but you now are more aware of the value that a father figure brings into your son's life. And I guess just have to get creative about how you get him that time.
Yeah. Can I talk about how I got creative?
Oh yeah. I was like, yes, tell me.
Well, first was to get my son into occupational therapy.
Okay.
Or sequencing, right? Before, after, later, things like that. Mm-hmm. Because it's executive functioning, right? Yes. Whether you're neurotypical or neurodivergent, it will help. Mm-hmm. Period. Yeah. Right? So I, not to put it down, or because I think it's still controversial if your kid is in therapy. Well, my kid is in therapy because it's helpful to both of us, and it will be a great help to him growing up.
Right.
But I specifically requested a male occupational therapist. And when I met the therapist, I said, I'm happy if he's doing well. I really just need you to spend time with him. Wow. And if it falls more on the, like, you guys are chatting, then...
And it's like two birds with one stone.
Yes. And then the second thing I did was get my son into football.
Right.
And I was really picky about the coach. Like the vibe and how my son would vibe with him. And I would get my son one-on-one sessions. Yes, for football, yes, for skills, but mostly for that connection.
Right.
And I can say my son bloomed in football because of it, because the coaches pour their heart into it. They scold them, you know, they encourage them. Mm-hmm. There's discipline, there's brotherhood, there's all these things that a growing boy needs. And that was my creative way of doing it.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
And I think I've really seen it show. Mm-hmm. My son is so assertive now.
He is an extremely confident, independent young man, and he's respectful, and you're raising really an incredible son, Esther. You're a great mom. And I really want to ask you, because I asked you about the challenges, but I just want to give you, before we land the plane, some time to talk about some of the joys of being an adoptive mother as a single person, as a single woman. And, we did kind of highlight and start with some of the challenges, but what I've seen and observed from a distance is just how you talked about your son blooming, but just you blooming and blossoming and becoming just this different person. It's been really wonderful for us as a team to see that transformation.
I think, what are the joys? Well, I don't have to share him as a single mom.
Well, no, just tell us a story. Tell us what do you guys love to do together? How do you connect with him? What are some of the gifts you've received from saying yes to this?
Oh my goodness.
Because I'm sure there's thousands of them.
Yeah, I think one thing we like to do is watch movies together. I inflict movies on him. So during sem break, I said, you have no choice. We're doing Lord of the Rings Extended Edition marathon. And we did, and he loved it. And we've done Star Wars. We're doing Avatar now because the new movie is coming out. And I found out I was a movie buff really late in life, like college, because we grew up reading and without a television set. So, but I was just like, but my son doesn't really like to read. And I was like, okay, I'm going to reshape myself and communicate with him in a way that we both enjoy. Yes. So we would watch Phineas and Ferb together. So most of his, and it's just fun because now we have all these, it's like your internal language, like your family language, where you're just making jokes that nobody else understands. We have so many inside jokes. Oh. And I think that's when you feel like you've done it. Like you've created that family where he feels safe. There's one person that he'll be understood by. And okay, one last. He was coming home from my grandmother's place, and because I dropped him off and then I went to work.
So this is his great grandmother.
Yeah, his great grandmother.
Okay.
And instead of waiting inside the house, I decided to wait on the doorstep. Oh no, I'm going to cry for him. And he saw me through the gate, and he rushed through the gate, threw all his bags on the ground and said, "My mommy." And he threw himself into my arms. And I was like, this is worth it. It's worth it. It's all worth it. For that moment where he saw me waiting for him, because I was excited to see him. And he knew it, like I made it known to him. And I was so, it was, I don't know, nothing can replace that moment. Yeah. And I know that even when things get hard and he becomes a teenager and we butt heads, I just have to be the mom who's waiting for him to come home. And I just have to be the mom that God, I really feel like God designed us for each other. And I'm willing to follow God's leading in letting him grow up the way he should grow, not the way I think he should look like, but hopefully, a good man, a God-fearing man. And I don't have words. I just love seeing him in the morning and saying goodnight at night. I love seeing him after football, and I love our moments. And because he's gotten so much more articulate.
He's extremely articulate.
He doesn't stop
talking. He's quite the communicator.
Yeah, compared to before, right? So, and I just, whenever he says something to me that's uncomfortable, and I'm just like, I'm so glad I have created a safe enough space for him to say this thing directly to me and not be afraid, then I know it's going to be good.
You're doing a great job. And I know that it's not easy, that there are days that are really, really hard, woven into all those moments that are really incredible, right? Like just seeing your son's face in the morning and before you go to bed and knowing that it's all worth it. I wish we could talk for the next 3 hours because we like to do that. So in the team, we were like the two adoptive moms. So far, to the rest of our staff, feel free to join the club. No, we also have Miss Isa, but when we do meetings, it will always unintentionally end with a, okay, motherhood check-in, like, how are you doing? How are you doing? And I really appreciate that because the journey is very unique. But before I let you go for this episode, what's your encouragement to singles out there who are mustering up the courage to take on this journey alone, who are in that process of wanting to make the right decision, not to be careless, not to rush into it, but wanting to be bold and courageous as they step into this journey of adoption and foster care?
I think I'd say, firstly, you're not alone. If you're listening to this podcast, especially, you're not alone. There are other mothers who are there with you and for you. But the other encouragement I would say is, don't be afraid to ask all the scary questions. And don't be afraid to show down with your family and friends. And what I honestly did is, no matter what they said, I would bring it up. I'd be like, hey, I submitted my application today. Hey, I was approved as a, prospective adoptive parent today. Oh, the matching's going on. I haven't been matched yet. When people say, oh, what's your life update? Oh, I'm waiting, for my application. It's, if you just keep talking about it, they can't deny that it's happening.
And they take their cue from you, right?
Yes.
You're celebrating it, so I can't not.
Yes, definitely. And I would tell people, I want a baby shower. And when I want a gender reveal, I'd say I want a gender reveal, not a baby shower, because I think they're more fun. and it's going to be a big kid. So some of my friends actually did gender reveals for me after I found out, I was matched to a boy. So that was, enjoy life. I almost put 2 trips on hold because I was like, what if I'm matched? So I almost didn't see my family in 2023 because they're abroad. I almost didn't go to Bali in last year. And I was matched the month after Bali. And I was like, I wouldn't have given up that Bali girls trip for anything.
And it's wonderful that you got to do it, right?
Yeah.
So like, even in that process, you decide, you wait, but you don't put your life on hold. I think it goes for everybody, not just for singles who are saying yes to this, but all the more so for those who are single, because then your time is even more limited.
Yes.
Once there's a child in your home.
And enjoy it. Enjoy the single.
That's great advice.
The single space. It's wonderful.
That's wonderful. And I want to recognize as well that because we both work at Generations Home, there are a number of single parents that we have who have said yes to adoption. Esther is not alone in this. Unfortunately, we couldn't process your adoption because she's on our staff. She had to go all the way to CDO to do that. But Esther has agreed to actually start. Some of you might know that we have an ongoing like second mothers community, but that Esther in 2026 is starting a group for second mothers who are single, because I think the journey we've discovered that the journey is even more unique, right? And
yes,
and the support is even more needed for women and dads. Unfortunately, she can't lead the dads community, but for the single moms who are second mothers as well. Esther's leading a group. So if you're listening, you're interested, or you're thinking about it and you just want to learn from their experiences, listen in, sit in on their Zoom calls or their coffee dates and stuff like that, please let us know. You can reach out to us at Generations Home or directly to Esther through our team, and we would love to just put you in touch with a community. So thank you so much, Esther. I think just can't say it enough. Respect and admire you so much. Thank you for saying yes, not just to Generations Home, but even more than that. I'm so glad that you reviewed that post. I'm so glad that you were in the position you were in, vetting that post that day, where God knew, right? Like that it was not just a job that in that moment, but that it was going to completely turn your life around. 5 years later, your son is waiting for us downstairs at our office, probably starving because it's lunchtime, but that we would have the great privilege of knowing him and him being a part of all of our lives. And you're an incredible mother and you're doing a great job with our advocacy work. So thank you for all that you do. You guys get to see the person behind our corp comms and a lot of the advocacy stuff that we do that you don't always get the chance to see because she lives so far away for now. But thank you to everybody who's listening. This is the Family is the Answer podcast, brought to you by Generations Home, coming to you straight from Sage Studios. And they've been an incredible partner to us in our podcast and all the work that we do together. So that's it for now. If you want to know more about adoption and foster care, visit our website, generationshome.org, or send us a message on any of our social media platforms. That's it for now. Bye.
That was the Family is the Answer podcast by Generations Home, powered by Podcast Network Asia. Learn more about ending the orphan crisis and fueling our work through our website, generationshome.org. You can also find us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you found this podcast helpful, please leave us a rating so more people can find it too. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you at our next episode.